Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our third in a series of four workshops about AI. Today's topic is using AI safely, protecting client data, and yours too, right? So, in my conversations with mental health professionals, one of the biggest concerns is client data. Where is it going? How do we protect it? How do we keep it safe? And I want to bring up this image. Depends. Some of you may relate to this image or something similar. How many of you can relate to this image? Particularly around paper files, right? Carrying our files, particularly if you move between offices. I had a portable box, right? We carried files everywhere, or filing cabinets were stuffed with client files, right? So we've come a long way with AI. And in those, I knew therapists whose cars got stolen, who had notes in their car, right? So there was concerns about client protecting client data then as well. Thought that was just a funny take. But it is important to be concerned about client data, but we also need to just be able to ask questions, right? We want to be informed, so we're not just basing it on fear, and that's why we have our guests today. I want to just alert you to our last workshop next week. It's called Blueprint for Balance, How to Build a Sustainable Practice During Stressful Times. And we're going to put all the information together that we've learned over these last three sessions and really think about how does that apply to you and the practice you're building and growing. So please scan the QR code here. I'll drop the link in the chat as well. So let's get started. So we're here with Josh Spencer and Josh Cruz. Josh Spencer is the CEO of BastionGPT, or founder. I'm not sure your exact title, Josh. All of those work. And then Josh Cruz is head of customer success. Is that correct,
That's
Josh?
correct. Yeah.
Perfect. So we're going to get into it. So let me share my screen. We're going to leave a fair amount of time for questions. So please, feel free to pop your questions as they come up in the chat. I think we want to go through the presentation so that we get the content and then we'll open up for questions. All right. So I'm turning over to you, Josh and John.
Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction and thanks for everybody for joining today. So on the next slide, okay, perfect. So what you'll be seeing here in a second are videos, random videos generated all by AI. So generative AI, artificial intelligence, the videos that you're seeing here today, this was not possible years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago, it was crude. And so today it's here, it's improving every week. And I share this only to not alarm you, but to illustrate a point. So AI is advancing rapidly. It's touching mostly every industry, including ours. The question isn't whether AI will affect how we practice psychology. The question is whether we'll be prepared to use this thoughtfully, safely, and in ways that genuinely benefit your clients. And so that's what this is about today. We're not here to convince you to use AI. That's a choice that each individual will make here based on your practice, your comfort level, and your client's needs. And so we're just here to show you what's possible and help you understand the real risk and limitations and give you practical frameworks so that if you do choose to use AI, you can use it responsibly. By the end of the session, you'll have concrete examples so that you can try a clear understanding of the security, have an understanding of privacy requirements that you follow, and an awareness of the pitfalls that trip up most users. Okay, so to get started, let's go ahead and dive into some real applications of AI in your daily workflows. So if we think about AI, going back to the basics, you can replace half of your Google searches. And so, for example, the example that I use here today is what are some, let me minimize this. What are some at-home techniques to help cope with the loss of a pet? So simple queries like that, you can start training your brain to start using AI as opposed to using Google for those searches. Okay. AI can replace half of those searches, give you better, more contextual answers. Um, Instead of sifting through 10 different websites, whether it's Google, WebMD, or if there's a dog version of that, you can prompt the AI for at-home techniques to help with that loss, get you consolidated, thoughtful responses that you can then personalize for your client. Okay. Now let's talk about something that I know that takes up a significant portion of your time, and that's going to be documentation. So AI excels at organizing your session notes into a logical format. You can take your raw notes from a quick session, the quick observations that you've jotted down, and prompt the AI to revise them into a structured summary with key points, a treatment plan, goals for future sessions, and it even clarifies ambiguous statements that you may have written in shorthand. Okay. So taking it a bit further, if you record sessions with client consent, of course, AI can generate those session notes directly from a transcript. So the powerful point is with a single prompt, you can actually create three different versions, one for insurance documentation, one to send to the client, and then another just for your internal records. Okay. Each version is tailored to its audience and purpose. And then AI can actually serve as a valuable tool for professional development. You can review session transcripts, ask the AI to identify ways that you could have improved, areas where you might have been able to probe deeper, moments where a different technique might have been more effective. It's kind of like having a pseudo supervisor available for 24/7 for reflective practice. Okay. So on to the next slide. Kind of some more practical applications. Reports and forms. I'm sure it's a big burden for you guys, but AI can help you complete those discharge summaries, evaluation reports, and other standard documents by pulling from client charts, transcripts. You can provide the template, the data, and then the AI will essentially fill in those blanks in your preferred format. One one application I'm particularly excited about is the educational support. How many times have you finished a comprehensive psychological report only to realize that parents might struggle with the clinical language? And so AI can actually translate that those complex findings into plain language that families can actually understand and act upon. So it's not necessarily dumbing down your work; it's making that information accessible, making it what's the word? Parent-friendly language. Okay. And so, as far as clients who work or who have executive dysfunction, which is many of us, I am assuming, AI can generate personalized, productive plans. You can prompt it to create week by week organizational strategies tailored to your client specific changes. These starting points for collaborative planning and session. And then as far as the administration burden of email, we can draft responses to client inquiries using information from their chart and practice templates. If you need to have a client schedule an appointment, the AI can draft a professional, personalized response in seconds. You review and adjust if needed, and then send. Okay. And so I would like to emphasize that every one of these applications, you remain in control. AI drafts the work, you refine, and review and approve. So your clinical judgment is always key. With BastionGPT, we do ask that users take ownership of the material, review everything prior to full sending, whether that's through your EMR, EHR system, any external correspondence, or corresponding with colleagues. Okay.
Yeah, and I was just going to jump in there that it's so important to ensure that AI does not take away your clinical judgment. It does not take away your expertise, right? So you still need to review the outputs that you get from the product, even if you've put in the templates and the things that you want it to work from. One of my colleagues, who I think just jumped in the room, talks a lot about the human in the lead. And I'm like adapting that to the clinician in the lead. You are leading this work.
So on to the next slide. With security and privacy promises, this is where we separate responsible AI from risky shortcuts. Um, AI is a service that you can use in your practice, but it should either have IT approval. It should also definitely include a HIPAA business associate agreement. That's kind of a non-negotiable. So without a BAA, you are potentially risking or exposing your practice to significant liability. You're risking your license. Bastion GPT does provide that protection. Charmaine, I think you wanted us to touch on high tech and SOC 2. Those are additional security protocols. They go beyond baseline HIPAA requirements. They emphasize demonstrable, continuous enforced security um, and governance practices rather than one-time compliance. So it's an ongoing thing. High tech strengthens HIPAA by expanding enforcement, increasing penalties. They require breach notification, audit readiness, and stronger safeguards for electronic protected health information. SOC 2 is a little bit different. It's an optional step that companies can take. It does go further by requiring independent third party validation of controls related to security, availability, confidentiality, and ongoing risk management. Um, Bastion is HIPAA compliant. We are high tech compliant. And then, as far as our services that we use with sensitive data, we do have high tech and SOC 2 assurances. And so our systems do meet those rigorous expectations for protection and trust. Okay. Going on to data reuse, it's another crucial
Before you
concern.
go on, sorry,
Yeah,
Josh. I don't know if you one of you can pop the acronym in so people can see it so they know what to look for. And while you do that, I would say the other thing that clinicians can do is also ensure that you have cyber security insurance as part of your suite of insurance that protects your business. That's something that I did in the last year. So your most malpractice insurance companies will have a plan that covers cyber security. So I would definitely advise you to explore that and consider that as everything we're doing now is involves tech. And so it just provides you an extra bit of coverage if there happens to be a leak. Then a lot of those services that, the notification and people's getting the credit reports and things like that, that would be covered under your insurance.
So, with data reuse, it's another consideration that you need to look at. You need to verify that all the AI will not use your client's data, your data, to train the models. That's a serious thing. Some AI tools, the ones that you might use for personalized tasks, absolutely do use those inputs for training. It trains the AI model, it starts to learn your behaviors. And so, with regard to PHI, it's kind of a no-go. It's completely unacceptable for PHI. You'll always want to confirm that your AI provider has explicit policies in place to protect against data reuse. Um, with data leakage, it's a slightly more subtle risk. Certain features like internet search integration can expose those details. So, if you're using an AI that searches or utilizes the web to search a question, that particular query, which would contain client detail, could be logged, exposed. You would want to understand what features are enabled, what the privacy implications are. And then going back to just security overall, um, with Bastion, we don't use that data to train the AI model. And in addition, what I like is that when you're working on a Jane Doe patient and then going to John Doe, you're not going to have any memory leaks from one patient to the other. And so that's something that's different. Who Users who have experience with like ChatGPT, Gemini, I like that it remembers this, and that. However, I struggle with, it not remembering my preferences. And so we can go on to that here in a bit, but I just wanted to kind of touch on that since we're on security. But uh, last, as an expert, AI is revolving or evolving rapidly. And so the landscape 6 months ago, a year ago, looks much different than it does today. And so if you're uncertain whether a specific tool or workflow is compliant, you'd either want to reach out to your IT team, compliance team, or an organization like ours. There's really no bad questions when it comes to protecting privacy, client privacy. Okay. And if y'all have any questions, I know that we're reserving those for the very end, but if it's something that kind of pertains to the particular slide, I don't necessarily mind that if you interrupt with a quick question.
Great to know. I think people asked about the different compliance, but I think hopefully that is covered. The high tech and the SOC too.
I have a question. That's Fern.
Go
Can
ahead,
I ask?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I'm a little bit, I need more information about like when you say, all right, here that the AI service must not reuse PHI to train the model, right? And at the same time, like my understanding, very limited understanding, of course, is that, somehow it gets better, right? With the information we input, etc., in order to provide a more individualized and also provide a more accurate or better product, so to speak. So I use Bastion for help with some of my report writing stuff. So I just want to understand, like, how does it get better if it does not reduce the PHI to train the model? I think, so I don't, yeah, so that's what I want to know. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. So we have, and I think this is probably a better question for Josh since he's more on the development side. But from my understanding is that we are constantly testing it and improving it on the side. We don't necessarily use y'all's data to train that. Josh, phoning a friend, can you speak on that on a higher
Yeah,
level, if you don't mind?
absolutely. You said it right. And it would certainly make our job so much easier if we could take all of that data and use it to continually refine what we're doing. However, we know, your patients, your clients don't want their data to be used for those purposes. When you use those data for their purposes, there's more of a potential for it to leak or be exposed, and a number of regulatory reasons why that would be prohibited. So because we are a healthcare only, primarily focused with mental health, we understand that we're not ever going to use any of our data for the actual training of the model. So that's where we look at outside sources of data. Lots of really great work being done to identify, big areas of population, big areas of clinical documentation, and de-identify those. But we never draw from our own customers. We're always going to leverage some of those third-party sources. So large medical centers, large academic institutions, large federal grants whose job are to pull together these pieces of clinical data that our AI can then use to improve upon itself. So in many cases, that's taking that data, using professional teams to anonymize it and continually to refine and improve the brain. One of the ways that the AI can get really good at learning your own personal style is actually if you even provide the AI a sample of your writing. So if you want it to basically learn the way you write a particular type of note, you can either upload a document with an example of your writing style or your copy paste. One of the things that the AI is really good at is mimicking from an existing piece of data. So some folks will even tell us it kind of creeps them out because it's like, oh wait, this feels like something that I wrote, but I know in my mind I didn't actually write it. So that's a great way outside of because from a HIPAA compliance standpoint and from a healthcare compliance standpoint, we can't use the AI to continually refine and understand the way you work individually. You can help basically the best way to approach that with those limitations is actually going out and giving the AI de-identified sample of the way you like to write your documents.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And it answered my question.
Awesome, thank you. And just to hit on that note that you just mentioned, Josh, the piece around using, even though Bastion has all the security features and you've gone above and beyond what HIPAA requires, the importance of still not putting clients' names and identifying information when you use the product. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So some of that can certainly come down to your risk. So the philosophy with BastionGPT, and some other solutions out there that are catered for the healthcare market, the idea is anywhere that data could potentially be, we're going to assume, hey, that could be identifiable, that could be patient names, that could be test results, that could be diagnoses, all those types of things. So we are going to the same rigor that actually stores your client information. We're going to meet or exceed that. So you can absolutely include that data from a regulatory standpoint. Some folks that they might feel a little bit nervous, so they want to dip their toe in before they really jump in full steam. So some folks do begin with with this idea that okay, I'm going to go in and de-identify the data. As an option. Where we say de-identify, so one of the things we really have to watch out with AI is we don't want the data to leak, or sometimes AI can get confused about certain patients. So if you were to tell the AI, hey, here's a sample document from a patient I saw earlier today, I want you to make me an exact, basically follow this format for this client that I just saw. Here's my notes or here's a transcript. Sometimes the AIs can get those documents confused, and you don't want the AI to say, okay, great, and it includes patient data from your example in the actual report for your other client. But yeah, absolutely. The vast majority of BastionGPT users do include personalized PHI, PII in their prompts. And if there are any concerns or any desire to do that risk assessment, we can always walk folks through in a even more detailed manner some of the things that we do to help make sure that stays protected. But yeah, from a regulatory and compliance standpoint, yeah, use of PHI is appropriate, but obviously one that you want to be cautious about when you're selecting those services to make sure it's a service that you trust.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. That's why he's the founder and I'm not. Okay, so as far as limitations, pitfalls, next slide. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so we call these gotchas, and so these are things that can catch you off guard if you're not prepared. I think a lot of people have heard the term hallucinations, where AI generates content that sounds confident, authoritative, but is flat out wrong. And
So I'm working on an article for us to not use that language to say fabrications, because that's actually what it is, versus using stigmatizing mental health language. But yes, so
yeah, and there's a lot of ways to refer to it, but I think kind of wrapping our mind around it and knowing how to navigate through this point. And so mathematical calculations, dates, citations, specific statistics. The AI isn't lying, it's pattern matching. And so in ways that sometimes produces errors, always verify critical facts independently, again, taking ownership of your work. With the second one, knowledge cutoff, most models have a training cutoff date. They don't have access to the latest research, updated clinical guidelines, recent news, unless they have real-time search capabilities. And so when currency matters, you do need to double check those things. Okay. And then Charmaine, I think I know that you favor the keeping the human in the loop. This is the most
in the lead.
yeah, okay. This is the most important point, I think, that I'll make today. You're kind of responsible for everything that goes out with your name on it, whether AI helped create it or not. AI is a tool, and so it's not replacing your clinical judgment. If it is a generated report that contains an error, you're accountable as the user, as opposed to the technology or AI. Okay. So pseudoscience. Um, it's a real risk. These models are trained on internet content, which includes a lot of misinformation. If you're asked about a condition where pseudoscientific treatments are prevalent online, the AI might present them alongside with evidence-based options. So you'll need to still evaluate with some type of clinical filter. Okay. And I think
Maybe if I can also jump in a little
yeah,
bit
if you can,
to
Josh.
really highlight the importance of why choosing clinical tools like BastionGPT can give you a little bit higher quality or a lot of it higher quality than some of the either non-healthcare or the free services out there. Because it's really easy to make an AI model that you just scrape together a bunch of data. It becomes much more difficult to actually unpack what are authoritative sources and helping to influence the AI to say, okay, this, what you're getting from up to date, APA and those sources is much more reliable than a Reddit post somewhere or a Facebook forum. So you can see a very big difference in quality between different AI services, particularly in the area of pseudoscience.
Okay, so with public fear, misinformation, public perception matters. Some clients, colleagues have reservations about AI, some based on legitimate concerns, others based on misinformation. So you'll just want to be thoughtful when and how you disclose AI usage. Transparency does build trust, but that conversation does need to be handled sensitively. Um, and I also would recommend consent forms as well, having them consent to recording, having them consent to using AI in general. Those are all good ideas, and just kind of being transparent about that. So with reproducibility, it is another challenge. You ask the same question twice. You may get different answers, but AI can't reliably be reproduced or audited in traditional ways that documentation can. And so you'll want to keep that in mind for any medico-legal context. Um, and last, be mindful of how AI adoption affects your team. Job displacement, anxieties are real, even if AI makes those roles more fulfilling than eliminating them. And so effective AI use is a skill that needs to be built, and just support your colleagues when developing it. Okay. All right. So with bias in healthcare and AI, it's bias in AI is not a hypothetical concern. It's a documented reality that affects healthcare outcomes. So walking you through the specific types of bias that you need to watch out for. The first is an anchoring bias. Um, this this means that your word choices shape the AI's response. If you describe a patient as crazy, you'll get a different response than if you say they behaved erratically. Asking for a remedy produces different results than asking for evidence-based treatment. Be careful and deliberate when delivering your clinical language. With statistical or stereotyping bias, this occurs when the AI makes predictions based on correlations in its training data that reflect societal stereotypes. For example, AI might associate a mental health condition with specific ethnic groups at rates that don't necessarily reflect clinical reality. It's learned patterns that might statistically present in biased historical data. For homeless, they may not be prescribed drugs because they're homeless. And so certain little things like that, you'll just want to watch out with this particular bias or AI in general. with data bias, um, particularly socioeconomic bias. It's even more insidious. Research has shown that major AI models demonstrate decreased likelihood of prescribing medication, and I should just switch that one, presented as homelessness. The AI has learned from healthcare data that already reflects systematic inequities and perpetuates them. Um, Automation bias. So this is us relying on the AI. You need to guard yourself against this in particular. When the AI gives you 99% perfect answers in a row, your vigilance starts to naturally decrease. And so on that 100th answer, it might be dangerously wrong, but you've kind of been lulled or wooed by the AI into trusting it automatically. And so you'll never want to stop applying your clinical judgment. Okay. And the last one.
Yeah, certainly pop in there real quick. And one of the strategies you can do is to play the platforms, LLMs against each other, right? Check in, as a second, and then I was going to actual resources. But that's one way that you can check.
With generalization, this one is more rare, affects rare cases most severely. And so it's when the AI performs poorly when it lacks sufficient data. So rare conditions, unusual presentations, underrepresented demographics. The less common case, the more skeptically that you should view the AI's output. And so for rare disease, atypical populations, the AI should support your thinking as opposed to driving your thinking. Okay.
Absolutely. And just to elaborate a little bit more, since there seemed to be some interest around strategies to help remain vigilant. The biggest thing that we see is over time, you sort of develop an intuition with the AI around what could potentially be hallucinated, or even as you're typing in a question, catching yourself and realizing, oh, hey, the way I'm writing this could bias the answer. So therefore, I need to, slightly change the wording. So as if you're in your first week of using AI, you're likely going to be totally blind to this. So I've been using BastionGPT every day for the last 3 years, and I find even today that the more I use it, the more you develop this kind of gut intuition for what could potentially be an issue.
So what are specific examples of how to use AI? With reports, evaluations, all sorts of things. To give you an example, and I know that we probably don't have a lot of forensic psychologists in the group right now, but this is an example I like. I'll go ahead and share screen to kind of illustrate this a little bit more in depth. But when you're using AI, you want to give it the role specifically. And so in this case, telling the AI it's a forensic psychologist, and then letting it know, hey, this is the type of report that I'm wanting to achieve. And so in this case, if I was looking to evaluate a patient or defendant on his ability to stand trial, I would want to let it know that it needs to complete a CST evaluation. In that body of the prompt, I also need to include information that I want included as far as identifying information, any weaknesses in the case, his mental state, etc., and including a sample of my writing as well. So it's more now writing like Josh Cruz for style, tone, and format rather than kind of giving me what it thinks I want or something just very generic, middle of the road. And then any supporting documentation for the AI to analyze. And so let me go ahead and share my screen.
And you have at least one forensic psychologist in the room, myself.
Okay. Do you do a lot of these type of reports or evaluations?
I don't do as much now, but I do. So yeah, I have my templates.
So going with the competency to stand trial, and let me just pull this up really quick.
And so over on the right, you have here templates. that you're
Yeah, and so
going
I was
through?
going to highlight. So, like I mentioned earlier, our AI is not going to remember your patterns, your behavior. We're not using your data or your client's data to train the AI model. And so, um, in order for it to kind of give it your voice, you want to instruct it with a prompt. Um, and so, I'm going to tell it the type of evaluation that I'm doing. And these are for things that I do repeatedly. So if I do a lot of CST evaluations, I would want to, let's go over actually. If I'm doing a lot of evaluations, then I would want to build a prompt out so I can kind of do this for a better workflow. But tell it that it's a psychologist looking to
We're
achieve.
seeing your, I'm only seeing your
Oh, I moved it over
desktop.
the wrong way. Sorry. Apologies. Okay, so I'm looking to achieve a CST evaluation. And then this is the identifying information that I would want to include if that's needed for my type of report. I can instruct it on a neutral and professional tone, avoiding speculation. And then here's that sample piece that I want to include so it knows to evaluate this sample for style, tone, format. It's using this as a style guide essentially. And I want to let it know that this is the beginning of my sample and the end. So it's only evaluating this information just for that formatting. And of course, Richard Cunningham is just dummy information. It's not real patient data. But in your case, you could actually place in the prompt another evaluation without having to de-identifying it because the AI knows that in this case, we're just analyzing for those things. Okay. And so let's go ahead and use this one. So I can just click here and then all of that prompt will be imported into the text box. I'll want to attach anything that's applicable. So in this case, an interview with the mother, the DA charging report, the forensic interview with the defendant, and then the police report. And it goes into a deeper analysis when I give it a little bit more information. Takes maybe about 30 seconds to render a response. Generally, on most responses, it might be about 3 to 5 seconds to generate a response.
Much longer than we would take to write a report. You know, I had so many all-nighters and sleepless nights writing reports that were due in court the next day. I think one of the questions that has come up when I've talked to clinicians, do you need to note somewhere that your report was generated by an AI platform?
I think the best workaround or the best way to address that is just including that in your terms of use or having that a consent form provided to your patient. We do at Bastion provide one, but with our terms of use, just because recording can recording varies from state to state. There's different rules, regulations. You want to make sure that you have your legal team, your compliance, whoever take a look at that. So we provide a guideline as opposed to, the golden consent form. But I would say a consent form is probably going to be your best bet in that
Yeah.
case.
And
I also
what
do.
do
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm curious because I haven't done it for courts yet. Like, what do courts expect? Like, do we
Yeah,
have to inform them that we're using AI in our practice?
absolutely. And this is a very hot area of discussion around, what is best practice, what's regulatorily required. A lot of the laws and protocols that were put in place well before anyone could have imagined AI would have been capable of doing such incredible things. So a lot of that is rapidly in flux. For the most part, as long as you are reviewing whatever the AI has drafted, and you're representing that, yep, hey, this is exactly as if I would have typed this out from my own brain. Generally, we're seeing that disclosure doesn't need to be there. So similar, like if you're using spell check or something like that.
Or having somebody
We've
else
had some.
like an intern write your report for you and
Yeah.
then you, yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, very active discussions. We actually met with the APA team because they are looking at, yeah, in what cases do you cite this versus not, because it's trained on copyrighted works, but it's being generated from an AI model. So it's going to differ depending on different industries. In some cases, particularly if you're risk adverse, yeah, making a note there that, yeah, hey, we used BastionGPT to draft certain reports, but the statements are authoritative on behalf of Dr. Sherman Jackman. Those types of things could provide you some additional cover. But yeah, in the most part, what we're seeing as far as documenting AI use for trial documentation, sending insurance, things like that. Generally, folks aren't disclosing. But of course, the relationship with your patient or client can be an entirely different thing. That we are generally seeing disclosures, particularly around the use of recording. And again, yeah, we do have some examples posted of consent within US, Canada, and Australia are our main three regions. And in either a healthcare context or a mental health context. But yeah, ultimately that would need to defer to your your particular region. And often if you do have a compliance person or a privacy person on available to you, sometimes they can speak to even very specific regional requirements that might be popping up in your area.
Thank you. I know, hot topic for sure. Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, you're good. I don't mind the interruptions. So the CST evaluations generated, if you'll notice, my sample, if you remember, had Richard Cunningham's information. And so at a quick glance, I'm not seeing any of that information push through because it was just analyzing for the format. And so if you actually looked at the attachments and could see those, Marcus Leon Whitaker is going to be the defendant. It's analyzing everything, and as far as all of my fields, it looks like everything was properly filled out. These are the 4 attachments that I've included that it's using as my source information. Yeah, so in a matter of seconds, you have a competency to stand trial evaluation generated. And so it's kind of crazy now what it can do. Takes away the pain of writing hours after all of your meetings. We've had a few senior psychologists come to us and, hey, I'm old school. I hate writing, but I also hate the idea of AI. But I have carpal tunnel now. I've had surgery, and I'm now having to adopt AI in my practice because if I want to continue practicing, I have to learn this. It's going to save me. So, yeah, it's got a lot of uses. It's crazy what it can do. Jumping on to the next one, and I guess it would be kind of cumbersome to jump back and forth. Josh, can you remind me what the next slide showed? Do you have access to that?
Yeah, I think that was the act as a second set of eyes or safety net.
Yeah, and actually, and I can just pull it up really quick. Apologies. Okay, and so as far as any type of note, evaluation, final report, you want to identify where language might be unclear. There's potentially unidentified differential diagnoses, recommendations, and any contradictions. And so the AI can essentially complete a safety net review for you, looking out for those things. And we've had users in the past with Bastions, do these safety net reviews. And oh my God, I couldn't believe it caught this. For example, at the APA, we had a lady do a safety net review, and it was identifying she was upset because the ADHD report showed that the student was exhibiting symptoms of ADHD as early as 6th grade. And she asked Bastion, where did you get this information from? Thinking that it was hallucinating. And it comes back with, in sixth grade, Johnny was scoring goals for the opposing team. And she just couldn't believe that, oh my God, like I should have caught that. You know, I'm reviewing this patient for ADHD and I can't believe I missed that. And so it really does serve as a second set of eyes in situations like this. When we're just kind of reading through hours and hours of report, it is nice to have somebody kind of watch your six, so to speak. So, okay, so when drafting letters to third parties, AI can also do this as well. Denial appeal letters. I'm sure that you guys, the ones that work with insurance, have had that issue before. And so I'll go ahead and do a run through of that. So in this case, I want to let the AI know that you're a medical appeals specialist. And I guess that on this one, I would want to change the verbiage because it's going to be psychology. But dealing with Blue Cross Blue Shield, I want to attach my patient chart, the denial letter, and the payer policies for Blue Cross Blue Shield. So this one is for ABA therapy for James William Doe. ABA is viewed as having diminished returns after age 12. He's now 15. And he's been receiving this since age 8. And then as far as that goes, so in this case, really quick, going back, in this case, if I wanted to use this and submit this back to the insurance, I could just use the double square icons, copy this, put it into a Word document, PDF, and then submit that to the insurance company. So yeah, so we would just submit this output to the insurance company. And so there's so many different use cases that AI can provide. And so any questions on this particular use case, the forensic psychology, or just about AI in general?
So I'm not a forensic psychologist, but I'm a neuropsychologist. So I write a lot. That's all I do. I write reports. Can Bastion generate tables?
Yes, it can. It can even do it in a CSV output. Josh, what is the particular prompt they would need to put out in order to get it in a CSV? What was the prompt that you used for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So with using AI in the vast majority of cases, just using your natural language will suffice. But in some cases, there are going to be some magic words, and our team is always ready to help you out if you do run any cases where it's not quite doing exactly what you want it to do. So the term that we generally say is if you want where you can put it in Excel or some other processing program, is you can say put it in a code block. And that basically makes it to where it puts all the relevant data. It'll give you an easy button to download it as like a CSV or a file that could be opened in Excel or Google Sheets, or copied and pasted in your report as a table. We are implementing some new feature upgrades coming in about 4 to 6 weeks, that will allow it to actually generate the graphical tables directly within the BastionGPT window itself. So you're like, yeah, based on these particular scores, please graph this over time to see how well they're doing on certain reports. That's one of those things that is we're really excited to have coming soon.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna have to try that.
So the floor is open, and I think we had talked about which I forgot to get from you, Josh, a code for people who attended for InnoPsych, for part of the InnoPsych network. If you want to
Yeah.
try out Bastion, it sounds like Dr. Fern is a customer, an enthusiastic customer already. So we can definitely post that in my follow-up email. But what questions do you have right now? So the question here is, first time they're hearing about BastionGPT. Is it a standalone program or does it integrate with electronic health records?
Yeah, it's a great question. Bastion GPT is implemented in a number of EHRs. Some of them have tried to make it themselves and realize, hey, with Bastion GPT, since we've been around and rapidly improving over the last 3 years, really since this technology became possible, we're seeing more and more inclusion. Unfortunately, many EHRs are trying to, fortunately or unfortunately, trying to implement themselves. So there is so much churn and volatility in the market right now. We have seen so many teams that basically they go out and they try to buy a service or do an integration with some of these providers, and it works great maybe the first week, and then the EHR does an update. You're typically it's pretty expensive to get those integrations. Your EHR company is going to charge you a lot of money to turn them on, only for them to end up being very fragile. But we are seeing that pretty rapidly change. So our estimation is likely within the next probably 3 to 6 months, we're going to transition from kind of the bleeding edge to the cutting edge, as far as getting those put into your client management system or your EHR system. Um, if your EHR has an AI service already, definitely encourage you to try it out. In some cases, you can ask for a free trial before you turn it on, or commit to some of that to figure out is the quality there or not. Because even though your EHR might say, yep, they've got AI, some of them are basically just turning on generic, low quality, very cheap AI models. And so if you're used to something like a clinical grade Bastion GPT, that can be very shocking to go from something that's got a higher level of intelligence to your EHR might be using a much more simplistic one. So all things to keep in mind, particularly before you agree to a 1 year commitment to turn on your EHR's AI, just to make sure it's going to do a good job.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
yeah,
but oh, go ahead.
yeah, I would say I compare Bastion GPT to like Chat GPT for healthcare.
Mhm.
Last week we had a conversation with a founder from Oasis, which is an AI native EHR. So they've built it in from the bottom up. So any other questions? I know we are at time. Look at that. Um, I want to thank you. Any other questions? I can hang out for, I don't know. I don't actually shouldn't say that because I can't account for other people's time. But this has been a wonderful conversation. Hope people are feeling a little bit more informed about the security pieces and how to protect their client data. Stay tuned. We have one more session coming up next week where we're pulling all this together. We're going to do prompt engineering. We're going to think about all the pieces that we talked about leading up to today and for next week. Um, let me know, how has this been helpful for you? Do you want us to keep going? What other speakers might you want me to invite in for these conversations? We will be starting our AI learning circle in March. I will put that in our follow-up email for you. But again, thank you. It's been wonderful to see the interest and curiosity from our mental health professionals, even though a lot of this is scary and moving at the speed so rapidly, it can feel really hard to catch up. But we need to be in the lead in these conversations so we can protect our client data, protect our own data, but then also educate and advocate our clients and advocate for our clients. So on that note, thank you again, Josh Spencer and Josh Cruz, for coming and sharing your expertise. Stay tuned for more, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much. This was very, very helpful. Now I'm going to dig in. I have a subscription. I'm going to use it in ways I haven't used it before. So thank you.
There you go. Love it. Love it.